We now go to the first phase of the DMAIC, which is the define phase. In the define phase, we try to understand the problem. Our approach in this module is to go through the different tools, but in a sequential manner, in terms of where you would most likely encounter the tool if you were running a Lean Six Sigma project. This is the DMAIC methodology. We will be looking at this methodology during this course. So it highlights here the step-by-step process of doing the process improvement. Again, there's an equation there on top, is always a reference, y equals f of x. If you have a desired, y is the outcome, the desired characteristic that you would want to achieve. And in order to achieve that, you need to control what we call the internal process characteristics, which are represented by the x's. And you go through this step-by-step process to do the improvements that you want to do. Under D or define, you identify what the customer expect of your process. Then you go to measure, where you quantify the pain, you identify the frequency of the defects, and here you eliminate the ambiguities because you get to know what it is that you're trying to measure. And then you go to A, which is analyze. Now you identify what are the root causes influencing the output that you would want to improve. And once you've identified that, you go to I, which is improve, and you implement solutions and you verify the effectiveness. Once you've discovered the solution to your challenges, you now go to control. You make sure that the solutions that you implemented become sustainable. For now, we go to define, which is the first part of the DMAIC methodology. In the define module, there will be three major topics. The first one is we'll be talking about project selection. When you are in a process, you identify what process to start. This is quite relevant if you are in an organization, because organizations have multiple priorities. So you need to identify first the projects that you would want to move forward. But if you're a freelancer, you can choose a specific topic that you would want. It could be a project that is requested by your client or a project that is related to your internal process. Okay, so the next major section here in define is the project charter. This is quite useful when you are launching a Lean Six Sigma project. And then the third topic that we're going to discuss for this module is the process mapping. The question now is, where could projects come from? And this is quite useful when you are in an organization that would need to manage the resources. So three components where projects will come from would be: one will be the voice of the customer. These are the feedback of your customer. It could be customer complaints. It could be from product recalls or from a feedback of your customer. The second chunk will be what we call the voice of the process. If you're running a process, you would count the breakdowns, the defects, or operational efficiency. This is quite useful if you're in a manufacturing setup, but in a service industry, you also get to encounter this. So it could be defects in the output that you've given to your customer. The customer may not have complained, but if you are tracking the process, then you have a mechanism to measure the performance of your process. And the next chunk is what we call the voice of the business. This is more on the dollar side or the peso side of your business. So it could be profitability, revenue target. Are you hitting the desired revenues of your company or of your business, and organic growth? These are the different sources of information that could trigger a project for your process. We now go to a very important tool. It's quite frequently used. It's what we call the VOC2 CTQ. This tool is very important when you want to translate the needs of your customer, because sometimes our customer can give ambiguous requirements. So you need to translate that. Two uses for this one. The first one is it could lead to a project selection. A customer complaint, you need to translate that. You get to identify how you would address the needs of your customer. At the same time, this tool can also be used if you want to, let's say you are in the business of creating something for your clients and your clients has ambiguous requirements. So you need to translate that into something that is easy to measure. Okay. For example, in the example I'm using here is, so it's divided into three parts, by the way: the need, quality driver, and performance requirement. So a customer would require a need of a good customer service. So what drives good customer service? I think the example here is probably they are in a business of handling customer complaints. Maybe this is a credit card example. I'll just move my camera over here. Okay, so a good customer service could be one, waiting time. So that's a quality driver. So that's key driver that would determine whether a customer will be satisfied. How pleasant your staff is, and it could be a refund policy. In terms of the waiting time, performance requirement could be, maybe a measure would be 90% of your customers are satisfied with the waiting time. Waiting is something that is part of the process, but how satisfied are your customer based on the waiting time that you provide to them? Next one is phone calls answered within 20 seconds. That is a good measure of waiting time. Your customer might not want to wait beyond 20 seconds. Okay. Another one will be percentage of purchases or refunds processed within 2 minutes. If your customer has a purchase or a refund request, ideally 90% should be addressed within 2 minutes. Pleasant staff. How pleasant your staff here can be measured in terms of they should be greeted within 30 seconds upon entering a store, or you need to have a customer who's smiling genuinely when you have a staff who's customer facing, smiling genuinely when interacting with your customer. Refund policy. So you can measure refund policy here as percentage of customer satisfaction. Ideally, 80% should be satisfied with your refund policy. What this tool simply did was to convert a need into something that you can easily measure in terms of the performance. At this point, we can have an activity. Using a VOC to CTQ tool, list down 3 performance requirements for an effective face-to-face meeting. I'll give a context for this activity. Imagine you are running a meeting for a client. So you could be an event organizer, and your client requested that he or she wants an effective face-to-face meeting. That's a bit ambiguous. Using the VOC to CTQ tool, how would you translate effective face-to-face meeting? I would suggest you pause the video now and maybe spend 1 to 3 minutes and write down what you think would be an effective face-to-face meeting. And once you're ready, you can proceed to the next slide. Okay, this example actually happened to me when I was handling a client of an international NGO. We have annual face-to-face meeting, and the requirement of the client was he wanted it to be an effective face-to-face meeting. In my experience or in my context, the following were identified to be the quality drivers. Content. A lot of our customers wanted meeting content because you have customers flying from different parts of the globe, and they would want to have a good value for their time. So a driver here will be the content of the meeting. Number 2 is a level of engagement. So people would want interaction, not just one-way flow of knowledge. And at the same time, it has to be cost-effective. With that in mind, content can be these are the following performance requirements for content. So it should be able to address all members of the supply chain, because at that time we have different members across the supply chain. So you want to make sure that the content is able to address all the people involved in the supply chain, and of course the information that we need to provide needs to be up to date. Okay. Engaging. So in terms of the engagement, we would want to allot time for subgroup discussion. So it's not just going to be a plenary discussion. We would want to have inputs from our stakeholders, and that's why we allotted subgroup discussion. And another requirement is to also have fun along the way. So we made sure that we have added fun activities. Okay, cost effective. In terms of cost, we wanted to keep our registration fee to be less than $80 per day. And cost effective also means that the cost that we have for that meeting would have to be kept low, and this will only come from the registration fee. Okay, we now go to the next tool that is encountered. It's a framework. We've discussed this in the lean part. It's called QCD. Basically, it only means that a challenge or a project can be categorized into 3 components. It could be a problem of quality, it could be a problem of cost, or it could be a problem of delivery. Once you know the category of the project where it belongs to, it becomes much easier for you to implement the project, because you would identify what will be the specific tools that you need to address the challenges. Let's look at some examples in terms of how you would classify a project or a challenge. We'll have an exercise, but the question is, what QCD category does this problem belong to? The first one, it takes 6 days to process your order. Others, in this case, others would mean their competitor can do it in 2 days. What do you think the problem type of this one? This one is a timeliness or a delivery type of problem. Okay. Second one, out of 100 complaints in the department has handled, 15% were not diagnosed correctly on the first call. This one is a problem on the quality aspect. Number 3, 20 customers last week have complained that the online app shut down during the purchase process. Again, this is type of a problem that's considered under that would fall under quality. Number 4, the department takes 5 people to complete a task that normally 2 people can do. This is more of a cost type of problem, because if you're paying 5 people instead of paying for 2, then you're passing the cost to your customers. This is a cost challenge. And number 5, last week 25% of the items produced were defective. So this one is a quality type of. The next question that we ask is, who are your customers? There are actually 2 types of customers, internal and external. Normally, if you're a freelancer, just let's say a solo freelancer, then your customers would be external. These are the people that buy your product. Internal customers would be people within your team or within your company. This slide talks about customer feedback. So you need customer feedback to identify what projects you would want to initiate, or identify which of your processes you need to improve. There are several ways you can get customer feedback. The first one is you can conduct a telephone survey. Number 2, you can have on-the-spot feedback. So there's an interaction with your customer. You can ask immediately for that feedback on the product or service that you have provided. Okay, some companies or some processes have a complaints form. If you're a freelancer, you might have a form that you give to your client after the service has been rendered. This is an opportunity for you to get their feedback or complaints if they have any. Another one is a Typeform survey. So there might be some customers who might feel a bit hesitant to reveal their name, so Typeform survey can be used to have anonymous responses. It can be more candid if it can't be traced to them. And another tool which is quite useful is the Net Promoter Score. We have a specific slide to talk more on the Net Promoter Score. Okay, so this is the Net Promoter Score. It's quite useful in terms of putting a number to feedback of your customer and identify, top of mind reasons on how you can improve the specific product or service that you provide to your customer. So the first question that's being asked is, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how would you rate our service? It's very top of mind. So there's no right or wrong answer. You're just asking the customer to give a value for that one. And number two is a probing question. Why is your score such? So here you're asking the reasoning behind why your customer gave that score. It's always a top of mind response. And these are extremely useful top of mind response because it's the first one that the customer thinks when thinking about your product. And the third one is forward looking. How can we improve it? Right? So very, very simple set of questions, but very powerful. On a scale of 1 to 10, being the highest, how would you rate our service? Why is your score such? And how can we improve it? I recall at that time when I was put on the spot to conduct a survey at the end of the meeting. Unfortunately, I know the Net Promoter Score, so I immediately set up this kind of questioning at the end of the meeting. And we asked our participants on a scale of 1 to 10 to rate the meeting. And then the next question is, why is their score such? And then the third question is how we can improve it. The Net Promoter Score. Another tool that's quite useful is what we call Kano model. This is a great tool that can help you identify any specific areas that you would want to improve on your process. So Kano model is a framework that's used to understand or prioritize the features of your product, of your service, based on how likely they will satisfy your customers. Because not all features are the same. You need to classify these features. There's a feature called the musts, the must-haves. There's a feature called the wants, and then there are features called the exciters or the satisfiers. So, or for your department, in case you are the head of a department and you want to apply Lean Six Sigma. There are three major types of projects. The first one is what we call the just do it. The just do it in this case is you know what the problem is and you know the solution. So it's just a matter of implementation. So it's just like managing a project. You have a timeline, you talk to your team, and then you apply it. Then just do it. Number two is what we call a lean project. So a lean project typically is more on turnaround time. If you would want to reduce the turnaround time of your process by maybe eliminating defects or reducing waiting time, then this typically is covered as a lean project. And the third type of project is a Six Sigma project. So a full-blown Six Sigma project happens when you're dealing with quality issues and you don't know what the causes are. So quality issues, maybe cost issue as well. The cost eventually is related to quality as well. And you don't know what the causes are. So in this case, you apply a full-blown Six Sigma project. And there you have it. That's the first part of the module 45. We've gone through different requirements in terms of how you trigger a project and understanding customer requirements. The second part of this module is about the project charter. It's the blueprint that you look when you want to launch a Lean Six Sigma project.
Welcome back to the Define module. In our previous section, we covered project selection, how to identify the right project and understand your customer's requirements. Now we're moving into the next section, the project charter. In this part, we'll break down what a project charter is, what it's made of, and how to write one that actually sets your project up for success. Let's get started. Before we dive into the tools and templates, let's take a moment to reflect on why the define phase matters so much. Here's a quote from Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. "Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?" "That depends a good deal on where you want to get to," said the cat. "I don't much care where," said Alice. "Then it doesn't matter which way you go," said the cat. Think about that in the context of your project. If you don't clearly define where you're going, what problem you're solving, what success looks like, who's involved, then it truly doesn't matter which direction you take. You'll be wandering without purpose. That's exactly what a project charter helps you avoid. It gives your project a clear destination before you take a single step. Next, components of a project charter. Now let's look at the building blocks of a project charter. There are 6 key components you need to address. Number 1, the business case. This answers the why. Why should this project be done? What happens if it isn't done? Why should it be prioritized over other initiatives? And importantly, does it align with your organization's overall business targets? Number 2, the problem and opportunity statement. This is where you define the what. Who is affected? What is happening? When and where does it occur? A strong problem statement quantifies the pain. It's not enough to say something is broken. You need data to show how broken it is. Number 3, the goal statement. Your goal should be SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Always start with an action verb. For example, reduce defect rate by 30% within 6 months. Number 4, project scope. This defines the boundaries of your work. What processes are you focusing on? What is explicitly in scope? And just as importantly, what is out of scope? This prevents scope creep down the line. Number 5, the project plan. This is your roadmap. It outlines the phases you'll work through. Define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. The full DMAIC cycle. Number 6, team composition. Every project needs the right people. You'll need a champion, the executive sponsor who clears roadblocks, a project lead, the person driving day-to-day execution. Team members, who contribute to the work, and resource persons, subject matter experts you can call on as needed. Together, these 6 components form a complete and actionable project charter. Sample problem statement. Let's spend a moment on one of the most commonly miswritten sections of a project charter, the problem statement. Take a look at this poor example. Reports were submitted late, so customers were angry. What's wrong with it? It's vague. It doesn't tell us how many reports, how late, how often, or what the real business impact is. It also jumps to an emotional conclusion. Customers were angry, without quantifying the problem. Now look at the improved version. For the past 3 months, 12 out of 36 reports submitted to the customer were at least 24 hours late. Customers rely on these reports to make time-sensitive business decisions. A late report can potentially make a customer lose at least a $1,000 business opportunity. Notice the difference. This version answers who, what, when, and where. It gives us a frequency, 12 out of 36, or roughly 33% of reports. It quantifies the pain by connecting late reports to a real financial impact. A good problem statement sets the foundation for everything that follows. If you can't clearly articulate the problem, you can't solve it. In scope, out of scope, ISOOS. The last concept we'll cover in this module is the in-scope, out-of-scope framework, often abbreviated as ISOOS. The ISOOS tool is used to clearly define the boundaries of your project, what's included and what's excluded. Here's why this matters. It's used during the project planning phase, so everyone enters the project with the same understanding of its limits. It ensures alignment across the team. No assumptions, no surprises. And critically, it reduces the risk of scope creep, the tendency for projects to gradually expand beyond their original intent, which can lead to delays and budget overruns. Think of ISOOS as drawing a line in the sand. Once that line is drawn and agreed upon, your team can focus their energy where it counts. To wrap up, the define phase is about clarity. Clarity on the problem, clarity on the goal, clarity on who's involved, and clarity on the boundaries of your work. A well-written project charter isn't just a document. It's your team's shared commitment to solving the right problem in the right way with the right people. In the next part, we'll move into process mapping, where we'll use flowcharts to visually map out your process from start to finish, so you can see exactly where things are working and where they're breaking down. See you there. Welcome back. In this section, we're diving into one of the most important skills in process improvement, process mapping. Whether you're working in manufacturing, a call center, a hospital, or even just trying to organize how your team handles work, process mapping is the tool that helps you see what's actually happening. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to map any process. Let's get into it. Why map a process? Here's a classic problem in any organization. You ask 5 different people to describe the same process, and you get 5 completely different answers. One person thinks the process starts here, another thinks it starts there. Someone else doesn't even know there's a step in the middle. That's the blind man and the elephant problem. Everyone is touching a different part and thinking that's the whole picture. Process mapping solves this by giving everyone one common understanding of the entire process. From start to finish, no gaps, no assumptions. And here's the key idea behind it. Every process is a transformation. You take inputs, materials, data, requests, and through a series of steps, you transform them into an output that has value. That's true whether you're making a physical product on a factory floor or processing data in a back office team. In fact, the process map is quite useful in a service industry because when you go to the production floor, you cannot see the transformation that is happening. Common types of process maps. Now, not all process maps look the same. There are 4 main types you'll encounter in Lean and Six Sigma work. SIPOC, a high-level overview of your process. Flowchart, a step-by-step visual of what happens. Cross-functional flowchart, a flowchart that also shows who does each step. Value stream map, the most detailed map, showing time, waste, and value. We're going to walk through each one. Let's start with SIPOC. SIPOC stands for supplier, input, process, output, customer. It's the first map you build when starting a project because it gives you the 30,000-foot view of your process. Let's use a simple example, making coffee. Supplier, the coffee company that provides your materials. Input, coffee beans and water. Process, grind the beans, put them in the filter, place the filter in the brewer, brew the coffee. Output, a hot cup of coffee. Customer, you. See how simple and clear that is? SIPOC doesn't go into detail. It just answers the question, what is this process and who's involved on each end? Use SIPOC at the beginning of a project to align your team before you go deeper. Levels of process maps. Before we talk about flowcharts, let's talk about depth. Process maps come in 3 levels. Level 1 is the bird's eye view. Think big blocks, like job posting to candidate selection to job offer to onboarding. Simple, high level. Level 2 adds sub-steps. Under onboarding, you might see submit requirements, assign a buddy, activate badge, activate email, assign workstation, orientation. More detail, but still clean. Level 3 is the most detailed. This is where you add decision points, waiting time, rework loops, inspections, storage, everything that actually happens on the ground. You choose the level based on your purpose. If you're presenting to leadership, level 1 is enough. If you're trying to find waste and problems, you need level 3. Flowchart symbols. The flowchart is the most common type of process map, but to read and build one, you need to know the symbols. There are 5 key ones. Oval or rounded rectangle. This is the boundary. It marks where the process starts and ends. Rectangle. This is the operation. It represents an activity or task, something that changes an input. Arrow. This shows movement or transportation. Outputs moving from one step to the next. Small circle. This is a connector. Use it when your map gets too big to fit on one page. Diamond. This is the decision shape. A yes/no question that creates two different paths. Here's a real example. A COVID vaccination process. The person arrives, shows their ID, fills out a form, then the frontliner checks their blood pressure. Is it normal? If yes, move forward. If no, reschedule. Then the doctor checks fitness for vaccination. Another decision point. If fit, get the vaccine. If not, reschedule again. That's a flowchart in action. Simple, visual, and immediately clear. Cross-functional flowchart. Now the cross-functional flowchart, also called a deployment chart or a swim lane diagram, takes the regular flowchart and adds one critical layer. Who does what? Each person or department gets their own lane, or swim lane. The steps live inside the lane of whoever is responsible for them. In our vaccination example, you have 4 lanes: the person, the frontliner, the doctor, and the nurse. Each step sits in the lane of its owner. This is incredibly powerful when you're trying to find handoff problems. The moments where work passes from one person to another are often where delays and errors happen. If you ever need to improve a process that involves multiple teams, this is your go-to map. Value Stream Map. The Value Stream Map, or VSM, is the most powerful and most complex of the 4 maps. It doesn't just show you the steps. It shows you the time each step takes, the wait time between steps, the information flow, and most importantly, where waste is hiding. Look at this payroll example. The map shows every step: receiving forms, inputting data, running payroll, validating, signing off, generating reports, reconciling, making adjustments. But see those yellow explosion shapes? Those are waste indicators. Things like validation steps that repeat because errors keep coming back. Manual processes that should be automated. Lack of standard input templates causing confusion. Excessive wait times due to dependency on customers. And in this hospital example, a patient arrives, goes through triage, registration, RN exam, doctor exam, lab orders, and discharge. The VSM shows that the total lead time is 165 minutes, but only 46 minutes of that is actual value-adding time. The rest is waste. That's why you build a value stream map. It makes the waste visible so you can eliminate it. Muda, Mura, Muri. And speaking of waste, in Lean, there are 3 types to be aware of. Muda, waste. Unnecessary steps, overprocessing, defects. Mura, unevenness, inconsistent workloads, or unpredictable flow. Muri, overburden, asking people or machines to do more than they reasonably can. When you're building your process maps, especially a value stream map, you're looking for all 3. The map makes them visible. Once you can see the problem, you can fix it. So to recap, process mapping is how you build a shared picture of how work actually gets done. Start with the SIPOC to get aligned on scope. Use a flow chart to document the steps. Add swim lanes to make a cross-functional chart when multiple roles are involved. And build a value stream map when you're ready to dig deep and eliminate waste. See you in the next section.